up, everybody? It's Double G for the Fight Game podcast. No John LaRocca tonight, as he just got back from his business trip, and he probably would not. He'd probably have a tape covered over his mouth, anyways, if he was doing the show. And he'd have to use facial expressions to answer me. But thankfully, we can always depend on Paul Fontaine here in the clutch on this Friday evening. And we're going to talk about pretty much the week that was in wrestling. And before we even get to that, Paul, you put up your post this week on the Fight Game Media website. All of the matches that you hadn't written about in the last few weeks. And so your number one match, I was a little bit surprised, was Kenny Omega and Takeshita.
What did you think it was going to be? Ospreay and Fletcher?
I figured that was I didn't expect the Tony Storm match from you necessarily.
Well, the funny thing is I really like that match a lot, and like if it was 5-10 minutes longer, it might have been my favorite match. I thought their London match was better, honestly. I just like the selling, and I mean the thing is they're all great, like, you know, and so we're talking about like a quarter star, and you know, like I went 5.25 for Omega and Takeshita. I went 5 for Ospreay Fletcher. So, you know, and then there was some really good stuff in New Japan too. And obviously the Elimination Chamber, because I went 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I think I had like 8 matches at like 4.75 or better in the last 3 weeks. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. You know, like there's so much and it's hard to keep track of. And then, you know, I'm even watching some of the stuff like Evolve and you know, like just because I love that stuff. You know, like I like seeing people developing and whatnot.
You like seeing them before they actually get up to, you know, more broad television broadcasts.
Yeah, and some of the indie talent they're using too, because you getting to see them under the WWE spotlight. So, you know, like the matches are kind of the same as they would be on the indie scene, but they're just like the presentation is different. So I kind of like that, and they're really highlighting their personalities, as opposed to on the indies they just go out there and do a match, you know, and the matches are fine and they're good. And I watch a lot of indies too, but it's a lot of stuff. But I thought that Omega Takeshita was, you know, probably a top 5 match so far this year. I still have Omega Kid at the top, but
it's still my favorite as well.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be hard to beat.
Yeah. So what are we gonna do tonight? Well, we're gonna do our thumbs up and thumbs down for the week here in a second. Then we'll do our top 5, and we're going to talk about some WrestleMania stuff, some AEW Revolution Fallout, and NXT had a really good show that I know you want to talk about, New Japan Cup. And at the end, Paul has actually seen SmackDown because it was internationally live for folks, and they're in Spain today. So for the US folks, it's still the same time. So it's not even on yet for where I am. So we'll save that for the end, just in case people, we'll give them the Iggy to let them know. If you don't want to know, then you can shut the show off. All right. So I guess let's kick it off with our thumbs up and thumbs down.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
All right, Paul, I'll let you go first.
All right, and apologize for the dog. You can probably hear in the background. He's going nuts.
How did Espresso get in your backyard?
No, this is like my wife has family over, and she just left to take them to like back to their hotel, and the dog does not like being left. Like, he's my wife's dog, so when she leaves the house and doesn't take him, he'll be like this for an hour. So hopefully she'll be home soon, but he's a bit. But no, my thumbs up. My thumbs up is going to be to AEW in general, and what I want to say is like the last, well, basically 2 and a bit months of promotion for this Revolution pay-per-view, and 2 months on Max, and the results that it got. We've seen some, you know, pretty well received television. We got, you know, 11,500 people at Staples Center, from accounts of people that were there. Like, they don't even know how they could have sold more seats. Like, it was basically a sellout. And they had a really good show that I had some issues with, but I don't really want to dwell on that because that's not really the point of my thumbs up. And I'm sure we'll talk about the pay-per-view in a bit anyways. But but also it seems to have done really well. So, between Max probably opening it up to a few more people, however many that, whether it's 50, 100, 200,000, who knows. If they're converting 1/6 of their audience to pay-per-view buys, that could be as many as another 60,000, potential customers.
Mm-hmm.
If my math is right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I tried to get, like, Dave has this general prediction about that more people are watching AEW on Max than, by percentage wise, than some of the other stuff out there. Like I asked him about the NBA because David Zaslav talked about how, we made such a great decision. We don't have the NBA anymore. That wasn't really his decision. But my thought on that was, well, okay, let's see, because once the NBA is done with them in June, then if you're just an NBA fan and that's why you have Max, you don't need to be a subscriber to Max anymore because there's no more NBA content. And so I wonder how many unsubscribes there are going to be. And my guess and Dave's guess was that probably not that many, because we would generally predict that most people watching the NBA are probably watching it through cable, or like me, who's using, Hulu Live, or people in the YouTube TV scenario, not really just only watching it through Max. But then he said he thinks that the number of AEW viewers who watch exclusively through Max is probably higher by percentage. And so he wouldn't give me a number. A lot of that he said this is kind of like a gut prediction thing. And so I said, okay, what did they do pay-per-view wise for AEW Revolution 2023? And how is that in comparison to this current number that we got today in the Observer, which was 135, 140? And so he said, well, 2 years ago, like, the audience was way different. Like, there's so many more people watching. And I said, okay, so if we have 600,000 watching today, what did we have in 2023? And you have this information. But I was guessing. I was like, was it 8? Was it 9?
It's about 9.
And he was like, yeah, probably around there. And then I said, okay, so does that mean there are, that many people who dropped off now watching on Max? And he said, no, I don't think it's that many. So his guess is, I'm guessing, is between 100 and 200,000, but I don't know for sure. But that's his guesstimate.
I've done some guessing myself, and I've talked to Brandon Thurston, and I explained my methodology. I don't really want to get into it with Dave. Because I really don't want to get into an argument with him. But the funny thing is we probably think about the same. I think it's just the way we're getting there is different. And so my thinking is that there seems to be about somewhere between 60 and 100,000 people in that 18 to 49 group that are watching on Max. And that's why their 18 to 49 numbers are so much down from year over year as opposed to their overall numbers. So if you take those people and add them to the overall number, because they are part of the overall number, I kind of get to a figure somewhere between 50 and 100,000. And what it is that there's some new viewers, but there's some viewers that are just watching, that are just switched the way they watch. So between the two, like, I think what we had figured was there might be like between 100 and 150,000 that are watching on Max, but about 50,000 of those were people that were already watching. So the other 100,000 are new people. So if that 100,000 new people, if you're getting 1 out of every 6 of them are buying pay-per-views, which is the same as their general audience, that would explain the 15 to 20,000 new pay-per-view buys that are coming from these people that just started watching the show because they were able to watch it on Max and they didn't have access to it before. So, that's good. That's like really good. And, and of course you had the new ways to order. I don't think that has much to do with it. Like,
the Amazon Prime, you don't think people just decided, I've never ordered on pay-per-view before, but now that I have Amazon Prime,
just for shits and giggles, I went on to Amazon Prime. Number one, it costs $57.99 as opposed to $49.99 in Canada. I'm told it's the same price in the States. But do you have an Amazon Prime account? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
But the other thing is, it's not easy to figure out how to order. Like it's not like they have a pay-per-view screen. Like you basically have to go into you have to scroll all the way down to upcoming live broadcasts. And then you have to scroll across because they have so many different apps that are linked to Prime. So
mhm.
there's like, they have baseball games, and this is in Canada. It might be different in the States, but they have baseball games, hockey, basketball, whatever. And I had to scroll like 20 down before I got to AEW. And then when I got to AEW, then I clicked on it, and then it gave me the option to order. But it's not like they had a splash page right at the beginning that says AEW Revolution, 50, and if you search AEW Revolution, it doesn't come up. So like it's not like I think the number of people that bought on Prime is, if there was 1,000 people, I'd be surprised. But it's and because like, and you brought this point up, like everybody's got YouTube.
Yeah.
Not everybody has Prime.
Yeah.
And everybody that wants to buy a AEW pay-per-view pretty much has figured out how to do it by now. So people tend to be creatures of habit. They're not just ordering because, oh, hey, there's a new way to order, let's do it. If there was a discount, they'd probably do it. But
yeah. And that's where, if Max does have
yeah,
a small discount, then I think a lot of people will go to order there.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on my
bundles.
Amazon account. I'm on my Prime homepage. Now, it's possible that if I was in the Amazon Prime app on my Apple TV, it'd be easier to find. But I can't. I mean, I looked for 30 seconds.
I go to that Prime thing all the time because I have a button on my smart TV that just says Prime, and it takes me right to Prime. And most things I want to watch are right there. And that AEW was nowhere to be found. I did find it eventually, but it was lucky that I managed to find it. I was actually surprised to learn how many different sports I could watch on Prime, but I'd have to sign up for all these different services that I already have.
Right.
Like, because I think you can get Max through Prime, which I don't think you can do in Canada, but you can do it in the States and you can do it in the UK, I think.
Yeah, this is really interesting because, like you said, just kind of maneuvering through this website, there's stuff that you can click on. Now, when you click on it, you'll get asked to log into X, Y, and Z or to buy X, Y, and Z. But I just didn't know there was any of this stuff on it.
No, like, so you would, I just assumed, I go there and there'd be like, sometimes, how they have the thing at the top that'll show you like the popular movies and stuff. And I figured it would be scrolling on there, but no, I mean, I don't think it's a super priority for Prime.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So good one. That was a good one. I think, AEW has had, even if, like Wednesday's show, now you want to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because, a lot of their pay-per-views, the next show is not fantastic because people are beat up, and I'm sure things have to be adjusted from what the plan was. And I think Tony even actually said that. He was like, yeah, we didn't have the lineup necessarily because I wasn't sure who was going to be available, which is, I get it, but there's lots of people who were not on that show who you could have promoted for being on that show.
Or you could have put Okada on that show, and you could have put Mercedes on that show and just kept them off the pay-per-view.
But that's just going to be a thing. And I think he sort of treats it like that, right? Like, like if you are, if you're in a playoff run for like hockey or for the NBA and somebody gets hurt, like you're not really saying anything until you know that person can or cannot play. And it seems like that's kind of how he sees it as well. He doesn't necessarily have like, oh, here's my plan B. And then, he's just going to wait. And which, I think, like I've said, it doesn't matter to me because I watch every show, but I don't know if it matters to, other people.
Their number was not too bad. I mean, the 18 to 49 was, one of the lowest ones they've ever done. But again, we don't know how many people are watching on Max. So, but the overall number was okay, relatively.
So the Mad Cow, because you've talked about this. The idea of a brand split. What do you think about the idea of a brand split?
Well, I'm in favor of it. I don't think they need to I actually think they're kind of doing it, without actually saying they're doing it. Like there's certain acts that you really only see on Collision. So, I think that's the idea. Like you don't actually have to have a split roster to where like, oh, only on Saturday, only on Wednesday. But You can have storylines that are just on Collision, and they go week to week on Collision. So if you got those hardcore sickos that watch on Saturday, they have a reason to keep watching. And then for the Dynamite audience, if you're going to carry stuff over, just make sure to update the audience on Wednesday that what they missed on Saturday. And they've been doing a better job of that lately, I will say. I'll give them credit for that. And I think, like I said, like what he's talking about, they're kind of already doing it. Like in terms of like separate belts. I mean, the TNT belt. Like, when's the last time we saw the TNT belt on Dynamite? To be fair, Dynamite's on TBS, so like it makes sense. That Garcia would be defending the belt on Saturday, and cruiserweight belt. I mean, the last thing they need is more belts, but
yeah.
I mean, the TNT belt is kind of a cruiserweight belt now. So.
When will we see ROH on TBS?
Never.
I feel like all the time we see at least some.
Well, we see we see the wrestlers, but they don't want ROH.
My guess is that they could probably already have it on True TV if they wanted.
Yeah, if they wanted to do it for like an ad split or something.
Yeah,
I don't think WWBD wants to give them any extra money for it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and they're making money on it. So I think they're doing what, honestly, like if you got enough people, I think they got 15,000 people willing to pay $10 a month for that service. That's probably more than they're going to make from WBD or anybody else. So might as well just keep doing that.
And the audience might not be that different, actually.
True. Yep. Exactly. yeah. I mean, I don't think many people are watching the weekly shows. I'd be surprised if it's 5,000, but you probably get like 20 watching the monthly pay-per-views or whatever, the quarterlies.
Our guy, the pro wrestling Joker, who I will get to hang out with WrestleMania.
Oh, was that who that 4 was? Malachi Black, pro wrestling Joker? I was wondering. I caught the Phoenix one, but there's another one that just had a 4. So
yeah, so he says there were vignettes for Phoenix and Black on
the Phoenix
SmackDown
one was obvious, but the Black one was not as obvious.
I'll have to now I gotta watch SmackDown. I was hoping there was gonna be nothing going on there.
We'll talk about it. It
was
a really good show.
My thumbs up is Stephanie Vaquer, and you and I will have a discussion a little bit later. Because I want to dig deeper into the women's title match on NXT. I just think she is absolutely flourishing, and I was kind of unsure if NXT was the right spot for her. I think she's even made a comment about it, saying she may have had she could have made the decision to go to the main roster, but she thought it would be an easier transition to start in NXT. She's awesome. Like, she could be one of the top. I don't know about stars, because you have to build that up on the main roster. But as far as wrestling is involved, my goodness, just in-ring charisma is tremendous. I think her timing is great, and she's just almost pitch perfect on the NXT brand for me.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. I wasn't sure how she was going to do. I was pretty sure Julia was going to do really well. Stephanie, I wasn't as sure, just because I wasn't as familiar with her. I'd seen a couple matches that she did for New Japan, and I'd seen just the one or two AEW matches that she did, and I just you don't know.
Yeah.
And obviously that crowd took to her. They picked up on her signature spots right away. She's working on her English. I think that probably what they're going to do is debut her on, I think there's rumors that there's going to be a Mexico pay-per-view coming up, or maybe it's already been announced. I kind of, there's so much going on. I have a hard time keeping track of all that
and
stuff.
They just did a big thing about Backlash in St. Louis, man.
Right. So that's why I thought the one in Mexico, I thought the Mexico is going to be Backlash. So maybe it'll be later in the year, but when they go to Mexico, I think that's probably, I mean, I know she's from Chile, but I don't think they're going to go there. So
it sounds like they're touring Mexico City in the summer.
Okay. So
yeah, I don't know if we're getting a pay-per-view, but she's she'll probably be on that.
Well, they debuted her there, right? The last time they pulled her from that New Japan show. So no, I agree. She's probably the MVP of that division right now, especially with Roxanne leaving. And that match, I think they're going to do her and Jordan Grace at Stand and Deliver. I think the Jada Parker thing that there is probably just gonna be a TV match would be my guess. But yeah, they I think they got something there that they didn't even know they had when they signed her. So found money.
What about thumbs down?
Thumbs down. Even though I'm watching it, I'm gonna say, and especially this week, I'm gonna go thumbs down to WWE Evolve.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I really liked the first week. They had 4 matches. One of them was like a squash. It was a showcase match for Keanu Carver. The other 3 were longish matches. The main event was like a match that would be the best match on a lot of TV shows. It was 6 of their WWE ID guys, including Jack Cartwheel, Cappuccino Jones, this new tag team I'd never heard of called Swipe Right, which they have a lot of charisma. And then this week, oh my God, they're almost all squash matches. They had just the dirt worst. It was like everything they didn't have on the NXT show, they moved it to Evolve. Like all that crap that you hate, that they did it, but it was way worse because these are beginners trying to act. And so you had Stevie Turner, being Ava, and they have this guy named Chewy Martinez doing interviews, and he's a comic character. They got your guy, Pete Rosenberg or whatever his name is, he's on commentary.
I heard. Is he any good?
Yeah, he's okay, but I mean, this week he wasn't very good. So it was a bad show. Wendy Chu was on it.
Can they take those those 4 dudes who just interfere and they get lights and they dim the lights?
Oh yeah.
Can they take those dudes and just send them over to Evolve?
They have Gallus on there. So it's like so yeah, I was not I mean, I'm like, oh man, if this is what this show is gonna be, I don't know how long I can watch it. The plus I will say is it does feel more like a television show than NXT Level Up did, which that was just random matches. They're actually trying to do a television show. It's just really bad. So it's fun.
This is a Gabe show, right?
Yeah. But it's like, oh my God. Now I got to see Kylie Ray, which is cool. And then her opponent, which I didn't know her, so I kind of looked her up. And apparently, like, she's wrestled in Japan for Tokyo Joshi Pro and done a lot of work in GCW. So she's like she's like an African American version of Layla Hirsch. Like she's tiny but powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And her name was Zara Zakur, and she can promo. She's a way better promo than Layla Hirsch. So that's somebody I want to keep an eye on.
So did they tell Gabe? They were just like, "Hey, Gabe, we want your version of Shawn Michaels's booking. Like that's what we want."
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, you can see kind of some of what they're doing. Like there's certain people they're pushing. There's these 2 giant powerhouses that both had squash matches that they're clearly heading for a match down the road. But just the acting was so bad. And I think like it's, and some of these people have been around a while. Like they moved, some of the people you haven't seen on NXT in a while, they're on this show now.
Mm-hmm.
So, they kind of moved down. Like Riley Osborne was on there, Oro Mensa. So like they're, it's kind of like they're getting sent back to AA after being in the majors. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah.
All right, my thumbs down. I'm going to agree with Brian Alvarez from Monday nights, Tuesday mornings, F4 Wrestling Observer Radio. After Royal Rumble, Jey Uso felt like the hottest wrestler in professional wrestling. They have found a way to really, really cool him down. I'm not by choice. I can't imagine it's by choice. And so he just keeps getting attacked by Gunther. Gunther's outsmarting him at every turn. And then, because I was watching, I was going like, okay, can we give Jay some friends now? Like Jay's like the coolest dude. Everyone wants to hang out with him, but he's got no friends to save him. And so who are his friends now? Otis and Tozawa.
Oh my God.
Why? I mean, I have nothing against Otis. I think Otis is a very entertaining act, but he's not a top level act. Why do you bring Jay further down by putting him with your comedy team?
I don't know. I mean, it's almost like they're using Jay to set up a Gunther Otis match. I mean, you know what I mean? Because like they had that short match on
Yeah.
Raw that was really good, and maybe they're building. I don't know what's going on with that, and they touched on that on SmackDown a little bit tonight too.
Jimmy, something
So
with Jimmy, right?
yeah. Where Gunther was like saying, he's basically slamming Jay, and then Jimmy basically cut the promo for Jay that Jay hasn't cut yet. So it's like, so maybe they'll bring Jimmy in as and that'll probably help.
It would be
But
nice.
I don't know what they're doing. Like the only possible thing I could see is they're trying to do like a Daniel Bryan thing where, like nobody thinks he can win and then he pulls it off, but that almost never works. Like
I
our
think
Kofi.
they're gonna be overshadowed a little bit unless they heat Jay back up. Because
I don't even think like they're Akila Cash and I were talking about this on the wrap. I guested for Salty Scott this week because he had a new member of his own bloodline that came into the world.
Did we get the name? Because
no, I don't think so.
I made the joke that I couldn't believe he got Final Boss as the actual middle name.
Yeah, maybe it'll be Travis Scott. But no, I think like right now, like if I'm doing a night one main event, like I mean, it's probably Roman, Seth, and Punk. But if you want to have a title match, I think I would go with Rhea, Bianca, and Io over Gunther and Jay. That feels like the hotter feud.
The only problem I see is that if the idea is for Jay to win this title, how does anybody follow the nuttiness of the crowd going crazy?
I don't know. Like maybe you do it as the opener, and then you just do like a cool down match or something.
Because to me, the moment of the show is him actually winning and being able to celebrate with that crowd and bringing his kid in and all that stuff that they did at the Royal Rumble, but just doing it, double the magnitude. And it's like it's the feel good story, right? Especially like I think we all assume John Cena is going to somehow beat Cody, right? Not that I mean, technically it is a heel win. It might be a little bit of a down, but the fans are so in love with the product, they'll be excited just because they saw something like that. But I would if you're gonna do the heel win on night 2, man, I would do whatever I could to pump up this Jay thing because I just think as a moment it could be one of the greatest like WrestleMania moments. So
yeah, like the Kofi thing was. And that, I mean, that didn't, the Kofi match, that didn't headline the show.
No.
So maybe that's the thought. Like, yeah, I mean, I think the idea when they set this match up was that it was going to main event one of those nights, but it's just the booking. Now they have what is it, 5-6 weeks? So
which is the problem, I think, for
could be because they got no ideas.
Yeah,
they got no ideas. That's a problem. Like I thought, maybe we'd see like Jay and Jimmy against Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser or something. Like I don't know what they can do. Like Gunther looks like he's gonna be defending his title all over Europe for the next few weeks. So I don't know how Jimmy fits into that, but it's I agree. Like I was totally with Brian, and I was like, yeah, we can't do 6 more weeks of this.
All right, let's get to the top 5.
Drums, please.
All right, the Jeff Cobb news, which I'm sure John LaRocca is glad he didn't have to be on the show. I had to ask him. He likes to talk about Uncle Jeff, and this would have been the time to say, nope, can't talk about Uncle Jeff. What do you think about the rumors of Jeff Cobb and WWE?
It's interesting. It's funny because my initial reaction was, people were talking about, WWE interested in him, and I was like, my first thought was, well, is he interested in them? Like, I think they've been interested in him for a long time, and it was him that wasn't interested in going there. Not so much, if he was gonna come to North America, it would probably be WWE.
I think so.
Like he fits better. It was more like he was happy with what he was doing in Japan, and he's making good money and for what he was doing and having good matches and everything. And maybe he just figures, okay, now's the time. I'm on the back half of my career. I can get 3 or 4 good years in and make a ton of money, set my family up for the next 30 years. Yeah. And that's and now or never. And he's probably looking at some of the talent that they have there and thinking, yeah, I could work with those guys. I did in our Discord. I put down a list of like 8 guys that could probably tie Jeff Cobb up for the next 2 years, and they'd be great matches.
Well, I mentioned this on Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave. I watched him and Bronson Reed in PWG when Bronson Reed was Jonah Rock. It was awesome. It was like, it was the old Gorilla Monsoon line, the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. Like just these two beasts hitting the ropes hard and hitting corners hard and slamming
and
each
they're
other.
both so much better now.
Also, Jeff is in the main events on some of these shows back in the day on the Bay Area indie scene. Jacob Fatu is on those shows too, on the undercard. So that's another thing where Jeff could be saying like, oh yeah, the idea of what I do, maybe it's a better, maybe this version of WWE is better for what I actually do than it was in the past. So I am not unbiased about Jeff. I know him a little bit, but he's also one of, my partner, John LaRocca. It's also one of his, best friends. So I always root for Jeff. And I think Jeff has had a very smart way of handling his career and being able to do the things that he wants and not really be tied down in situations that are frustrating. Like, he loves New Japan. And I think in order for them to take him from Japan, it has to be something really interesting. And obviously, from a monetary perspective as well. Jeff is hang loose, Jeff's from Hawaii. Like he's like, he's not going to be going into any headache kind of situations, I don't think. So yeah, just whatever the thing is, I just root for him to do what the thing is that he wants to do.
I'd like to see him maybe aligned with Jey Uso. Like that could be a good, maybe put Jimmy in there as well, and sometimes with Roman, like that's kind of like the babyface bloodline, as as opposed to he's like the opposite of Fatu, and then you have those guys on a collision course for down the road. Would be big, because that's money. Obviously Reed, Gunther, and him. Oh my God, like there's just so much. So yeah, I hope.
Senor Nerd said AEW. And my thoughts on AEW and Jeff, obviously had the crossover with New Japan, and he hasn't really been a part of that very much.
No.
So I kind of wonder about that. And he, like, you would think, I think when AEW first started, they're like, oh, like that'd be a great spot for Jeff because he fit kind of in the framework of a lot of the folks. Like he's wrestled all of the Lucha Bros and all those guys and, PWG stuff. And I'm sure he's done stuff with the Young Bucks, but he seemed to be in a place that he wanted to be in. So I feel like if the AEW thing was something that he wanted to do, he may have done it already. And, he's been very loyal to New Japan and that lifestyle. So I don't know. I don't want to, I can't make, we'll hear if he talks about it. I mean, he has been leaning into, if you've been seeing his Twitter, he's been leaning into the rumors and having fun with that stuff. So
I think he's only got one match scheduled for New Japan right now, and that's April 11th in Chicago.
Well, he's still in the Cup, which we'll talk about.
Is he? Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I didn't see today's show, so yeah, you're right. He is in the Cup.
Okay, for topic number 2 here, let's talk about this road to WrestleMania. All right. I hope I didn't get flagged for copyright for that one. I forgot that we're live here. And
it's Linda McMahon's theme song.
I know. It's like, I think it was like 3 seconds that 2 seconds. I don't know, whatever it is. Hopefully that we don't get flagged. But anyway, the road to WrestleMania. I had this thought as I was watching the reaction from the WWE MSG fan base to Roman Reigns basically fucking up the cage match in his own way and interfering and giving us a screw job finish in the main event in a show that I think everybody was like pretty fired up about, and in a match that people were fired up about, and no one cared. Everyone was like, yay. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like in a cooler period of WWE, you have this kind of finish and people would have just groaned, but it just shows you how happy the fan base is with the product. And also, they saved Roman for this moment, which made it cool. But, Punk doesn't have to do the actual job and Seth gets his win. Seth's going to be pissed that Roman took the actual pinning of CM Punk away from him. And then they did the thing with Paul Heyman and Roman and Punk. So, and I thought, if you were to compare it to how the AEW audience reacted to the end of the Revolution show, now they weren't exactly the same scenarios, but Christian cashes in, the crowd groans, the people watching groan. Mox taps out Christian, and he doesn't tap out Edge, or he doesn't beat Edge. The crowd groans, the fan base watching it on TV groan. And all I saw after the show was how the Death Riders thing needs to be done. Like, that's it. I'm putting my foot. And then look, my Twitter feed, I have vetted this thing to death. I very rarely see any dumb feedback in my own Twitter feed. And it's because if I do, it's because a friend of mine has retweeted something really silly into it. So I really trust my Twitter feed. I know a lot of people think Twitter is kind of chaotic, and it is, but if you follow smart people, you're going to get smart content. And I was like so surprised that a lot of the smart people that I do follow reacted in that same way. They were so frustrated. The Death Riders are done. They need to be over. Swerve needs to win. We can't keep having this. It's killing the company. We have this great success with this pay-per-view, and then this one down thing is killing the whole show. And I just looked at both scenarios and go, wow, they're not that dissimilar, except one fan base is just happier with the scene than the other is, which is fascinating to me.
Well, I think there's some key differences. And number one, the match, like, so Roman coming out and, as you say, fucking up that match, I think it was something that people not only were expecting, but wanted. Because they basically, like, there's rumors that there was going to be a 3-way at WrestleMania. It's going to be Punk, Rollins, and Roman. They set that up at the Royal Rumble, and we haven't seen Roman since the Royal Rumble. And so this was his return. And as soon as they announced Punk versus Rollins in a cage at MSG, people's alarm bells went off, and we're going to see Roman. Whether it's going to be he's going to be hiding under the cage or he's going to make an appearance or something.
Some people did, because I threw that out like it was common knowledge, and not everyone had put that together, which surprised.
But the way they did it was, in the match, you had both guys at different times could have won the match and chose not to because they didn't want to escape. And then you had Roman come in, pull Rollins from the cage, basically not only screwing Punk, but screwing Rollins because Rollins didn't get his win. But yet the fans cheered because they love Roman. Now, contrast that with the AEW scenario that you brought up, and you had a main event that out of I think there was 5 male singles matches on that show. I think for most AEW fans, the world title match was the least looked forward to match on the show, Mox and Edge. And then you compound that by having Christian, who's been running around with this contract since August, show up, and we don't even get a finish in the match. So this would be the equivalent of, rather than it be Rollins and Punk in a cage match, we're talking maybe Ludwig Kaiser and Pete Dunne, and then you're going to have like Austin Theory show up and screw it up. Like, this is, I'm kind of saying, like, you're talking about guys further down, maybe not down the card, but down the pecking order fans care about. Let's say this a different way. Let's say the main event was Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, and you had
Mark Davis interfere. Like,
no,
did.
That was bad. But if you had somebody that the fans actually want to see against Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, maybe Konosuke Takeshita, like somebody somebody at that level that comes in and they screw up the match, but they set up a 3-way that you really want to see.
I think the main difference to me It's just television wrestling versus pay-per-view wrestling.
That's another one. Yeah, that's that. I mean, so television, whereas the pay-per-view is supposed to be the end. You paid your $50, you're going to get to see the conclusion. Whereas on TV, it's like, no, this is just a setup for the next step.
And the other thing is that when it comes to, so let's say, because WWE's done this at pay-per-views a lot as well.
Yep.
And in yesteryear, fans would have really been upset that there have been finishes that were flatter than what we got on the Mox and Copeland match on a WWE show, where people are just like, oh, I'm never watching this stuff again. But of course, most of them always come back. And I think it's just that when it came to and I've been saying this forever, the WWE fan base is at a point where they're not worried about getting screwed and made feel like a jerk for watching the show. They're just like, I trust these guys. I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt, even stuff that I don't like. What was the show? There was a show a couple weeks ago where I was just getting negative feedback on, and I was like, this is interesting. Like, I didn't really find too much problems with it.
Was that with the WWE show?
It was a WWE show.
Yeah, I think it was like one of the SmackDowns.
It might have been.
That was like just really long and nothing happened. So that Rock show.
Okay, it was the Rock show.
Yeah.
It was
people
didn't necessarily like his promo either, and I was
like, I didn't like that show either. So
and I was like, it feels like a lot of the stuff that we watch. I don't know why this one was specifically.
Well, I think it was the idea that the whole show got like screwed up because Rock decided he needed to do a 40-minute promo. I thought of a different, like, so one of the things, like when you talk about like people are just accepting blah blah blah. Well, it's like because their characters are so over, people are into the characters, not just the company but the characters themselves. And AEW is getting to that point. So I thought of a better example. If Hangman had showed up in the Swerve Ricochet match and screwed over Swerve, and Ricochet ended up becoming the number one contender because Hangman screwed him over, I don't think the fans would have rebelled against that.
No,
I think they would have loved it.
Yeah, I would have hated it, but
you would have. But most AEW fans would have liked it. Like, and so that's the difference. Like, it's just the characters are over, and some characters aren't. So you had that confluence of being the main event of a 5-hour show, a match that wasn't very good, and then you didn't even get a finish. So it was, and then now we're getting a rematch. But
all right. So we talked about Seth and Punk and Reigns, and that was definitely, from an angle perspective, was great. I just thought it was funny because I was like, oh, this is normal WWE BS. But at the same time, it's building to something. This, like, I personally, you know this about me, I don't watch televised wrestling to see great matches. That's what I get the pay-per-views for. I like to see angles and promos on television shows. So that was great in the way that they did it. Where are you at with this Io Sky character?
I loved what they did this week.
Okay.
Well, I thought that the way that so you the segment was advertised as Io Sky promo. So Io Sky comes out, she doesn't really get any reaction. And Michael Cole talking about her and bringing up the stuff that happened last week. And then he brings out Bianca. She gets a better reaction than Io did. And they get into it a little bit, and then they bring out Rhea. And Rhea gets this massive reaction.
Yes.
And the way they shot this segment was brilliant, I thought, because you had in the forefront of the shot, you had Rhea and Bianca arguing with each other, and you could kind of peek and see Io in behind them. And the idea was that she's an afterthought in this storyline. And then to the point where, again, they like pie-faced her and got her out of the way. It's like, hey, we're talking. Let the big girls talk. Get out of the way. And Io stood up for herself, slapped them both out. And by the end of that segment, she got the biggest pop when it was over, because people were like, oh my God, we love Io, And I just thought this was brilliant, because I didn't realize until the end of the segment, oh my God, this segment was actually designed to get Io over. When I, all through it, it was like, okay, this is more about Rhea and Bianca. But no, it was actually about Io. And like I said earlier in the show, like, I think that this could headline one of the 2 nights of WrestleMania. I don't think it will, but I think it could.
All right. Now, where are you at with KO and Randy Orton. I thought Randy Orton's promo was pretty bad after the Elimination Chamber.
They did a little bit on SmackDown tonight. If I was at a 2 out of 10, looking forward to that match now, I'm probably at maybe like a 2.5. So, it's just a little bit under Jay and Gunther right now for me.
He was meandering so bad
Yeah.
last week on SmackDown with his promo. I was like, can we get the hook? Like, how do we get this guy to stop talking? Because he's ruining the story.
He was insanely over, so that helped. Like,
That's good.
Yeah, and this week, and yeah, KO made a surprise appearance. Spoiler alert. But yeah, it was yeah. So they advanced it a little bit, but yeah, if they don't wrestle on WrestleMania, I won't lose any sleep over it.
We have a comment that's about AEW that I'm going to hold off for our AEW segment because it's something that I want to talk about. But we're going to put a pin in this so the person who made the comment knows that we're going to bring it back up. And then Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest. I mean, they're doing a lot to try and heat it up. It's going to be in the middle. I think it's not going to be one that the fans necessarily are too into, but nice big guy match.
Mm-hmm. Drew did a tape vignette on SmackDown where he kind of retconned the last year and a bit of WWE programming to make it seem like they've been building this for a year. So that was interesting. I'll be interested in your thoughts when you see it because he did a really good job. Because not for 1 second do I think that they had this plan for a year, but after Drew's promo, maybe. So.
And then, are we really going to see Naomi versus Jade?
I think so.
Haven't we already seen it twice?
Have we?
Well, she destroyed her in the Elimination Chamber, and then she destroyed her on SmackDown last week.
Yeah, I think we are, but maybe it'll be on SmackDown before WrestleMania. Because they usually have some big matches on there. Jay did a promo tonight. Certainly seemed like that's what they're building to.
They're setting up her and Liv next week.
Yeah, her and Liv are going to have a singles match next week. So they kind of hinted at maybe Jade was going to find a partner and go after the tag belts.
Here we said we weren't going to spoil any SmackDown stuff. And
we're not really spoiling anything.
All right. So, yeah, maybe if it's like Naomi gets to choose her weapon of choice against Jade, maybe that makes it fair because right now it's not a fair match. Or maybe if you believe all the rumors, maybe it's Naomi and Shayna versus Jade.
Yeah, maybe Bailey on the Jade side, or somebody, or Natalia. I know Natalia and Shayna like to work together.
Natalia's writing a book, The Last Beating Heart, or something like that.
Oh, that sounds cool.
The Last Heart Beating.
She signed a new contract and she hasn't done anything. So I'd love that.
But what about Harry Smith? He doesn't count.
Well, I don't know. Is he a blood relative? I think he is.
So Davey's son.
Oh yeah,
he's married to Brett's sister. So yeah,
blood.
I guess Natalia said she signed the contract, and they've kind of been letting her just do the book stuff and get that done. So
I think she's training people too. And
good for her, man.
Yeah, no,
out of all of the people who they brought up on the women's side, the fact that she is the longest lasting woman on the roster says something. I would have never thought it.
20 years, maybe. Like, it's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, let's go back now. We're going to talk about this Moxley and Copeland thing, and I guess they're doing the rematch this upcoming Dynamite. So I want to circle back to our conversation we just had about the hardcore AEW fans really just disliking the Death Riders and saying, they need to fix this up. And so we have this comment. I would have Jay White turn on Copeland and Christian and then sign the contract and beat Moxley for the world title. Jay White versus Swerve at Dynasty equals awesome. So what I got out of Revolution is they are finally setting up the babyface contenders. And now from here until they change the belt, which could be, it could be a Dynasty, Could be at Double or Nothing. I'm going to guess it's going to be at All In. And these 4 gentlemen are going to kind of figure it out. And whomever is going to be the top baby, and the 4 gentlemen, to me, Hangman, Swerve, Ospreay, Omega. Those would be my 4. But there are also some heels in the mix. MJF it could be in the mix.
Ricochet.
Jay White could be in the mix. Ricochet could be in the mix. So we've dealt with this Death Riders thing all this time. Finally, AEW Revolution. By the way, it's not like they had many pay-per-views between. They didn't have any pay-per-views between World's End and Revolution. So that's part of why this Death Riders thing feels like it's so long. I think they finally set it up to where they're going to get ready and they're going to tell the story that they wanted to tell, and we're going to get the payoff. Now, the question is, will people be able to be okay with getting to the payoff between now and then? We'll see. The stuff that they've done so far has not been very inspired, but I also didn't think Adam Copeland was a very inspiring opponent. I understood it. There's a certain star power that he brings on a show that he was completely overshadowed, and he and Mox were overshadowed on that show. But you're like, yeah, Adam Copeland should get a world title shot, of course. Like, that guy's a legend. He would like you to see on his T-shirt that he is a ledge end. So, but now it's like, okay, we have these 4 contenders. We have 3 pay-per-views to get to All In. How do we tell that story? And I will say, I think they should finish that story and they should fully tell it. And if they were to pivot now and figure out a way, and maybe Moxley loses to Copeland on Wednesday, I think that would be a mistake. I think that would tell me they're just like listening to the hardcore loud fans, which sure, you should listen to them somewhat, but not to the extent of like not getting to where you wanted to go. Now, if at the end of Revolution, there was no clarity about what was going on, then I would probably feel like a lot of the people who are frustrated. But to me, I think there is clarity, and I can see the pathway now for this story to be told. And I think it could be really cool and have whatever the title changes, I think it will be a really good moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Cope does win the title, and again, I agree with you that it would not be the right thing to do. But if he did, I could see him actually losing it, like a couple weeks later at Dynasty. Like, it could just be one last world title for Cope, that maybe Tony even promised him, when he signed. Like, I don't know that. Like, I don't, but it wouldn't surprise me. And then you can do, because as you mentioned, they've set up all these contenders to the point where they basically told you that Will Ospreay is going to be challenging for the title at All In.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's in July. So, I mean, if you're talking Cope getting a title shot this week, then you've got a couple weeks later, Swerve getting a title shot. Theoretically, someone else going to get a title shot at Double or Nothing, but like, they don't really change their titles that often. So for, let's say, Swerve winning the title at Dynasty, like, then you're probably talking Swerve and Ospreay at All In, which is a great match. And, I'm sure they'd have a great match, but I almost think that Ospreay has to win at All In if he's going for the title. Like, to me, that's the guy. Like, if he's going for the title, like, I don't think you would have this quest of Ospreay saying he's going to get a title shot and then losing. Like, this is almost like a Cody Rhodes thing. Like, not with the history of that and everything, but this is something they should have done last year, in my opinion. And if they don't do it this year, I almost think like you've lost that ability to make him the face of your company. And he should be. Kenny Omega is one that I just feel like, for him, I don't think he wants to be the face of the company. And so he's perfectly happy having these banger matches on pay-per-views and showcasing his selling and wrestling the guys he wants to wrestle. And maybe that whatever it's called, the international title, is going to be like the workhorse title that, where you have bangers. And then so you're going to get Okada and Omega at All In, and maybe he's going to have a rematch with Takeshita down the road. He's probably going to wrestle Kyle Fletcher at some point. And and he'll just do that for a while. He's already been the world champion. Maybe he doesn't want to do it again. I don't know.
My worry is coming out of Wednesday, we're going to get a lot more negativity on what's going on, what they're doing.
Yeah, like especially like if they do this thing that they were, the rumors that there was some big, kind of schmoz thing that they had planned for the end of Revolution that they didn't do. And if they just move that to television, I mean, probably television is a better place for something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, it could end up like, I've seen like Luchasaurus or, I don't know who else, I guess probably maybe, I think maybe you're going to see Pac and Claudio back at some point. Like this could just be like a big, huge thing. And, like if
Luchasaurus be the vehicle to turn Jack Perry back to a babyface? Like let's say Christian and Killswitch have this thing, and all of a sudden, Killswitch is somehow in despair, and Jungle Boy comes back and saves him. Like, I don't think that's like the greatest idea.
I didn't even think of Jungle Boy, but yeah, I kind of like Perry as a heel, but I don't really like what he was doing as a heel, if that makes sense. There was, when he first turned heel, and there was this one promo that he did where he came out and he was acting like a Hollywood star, and they showed like a vignette where he buried his own character, his old character. I thought like he was onto something there. And then he just kind of dropped it. And then they did that whole thing where he became like a killer, and it didn't work, in my opinion. And now he's been gone for a while. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that,
I'm just trying to figure out how we can get the Young Bucks and Jack Perry back on the babyface side. But how do the Young Bucks turn babyface without us sort of explaining all the stuff that was happening over the summer?
What the other thing could be is Perry could return and join the Death Riders.
I don't know, man. Do we need two Wheeler Yutas?
I don't know, but you got to remember when this thing first started, remember they had an interaction with Perry and Mox called him a good kid.
Yes.
And, that was kind of a breadcrumb that they kind of dropped there and left.
Yeah, I've heard that one. That one's been brought up a couple of different times. It just feels like a force, right? This Jack Perry character, it feels like he is a square peg in a round hole. And I understand, not wanting to get typecast as Jungle Boy, because you and I are watching, or I don't think you've started yet, but I started watching the very first Double or Nothing again. And like he's the clean cut, shaved face, skinny Jungle Boy.
He was on that show?
He's on that show.
Oh, okay.
He actually comes out in a moment that I'd completely forgotten about, and I was surprised to see him. So, from the beginning, like he was put in this like really nice spot. The mean face guy, that's just not who he is necessarily. So it just, I think, comes off as a little bit of him playing that character, which is, I hate saying that because I know professional wrestling is not necessarily easy to project your personality. So
just that cool kind of Hollywood, I'm bigger than this, that's what I want to see out of him. I think he can pull that off, because I think there's probably kind of how he grew up in some ways, like a privileged person. I'm trying to think of I think there might have been a character.
This kid went to the University of Santa Cruz. I'm sure he had family money, but it doesn't look like he was raised as like
okay.
But I know, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I sort of feel like his dad did the opposite of him, except for the letting him wrestle when he's like 13 years old part, I guess.
Yeah.
What'd you think about the Speedball debut?
I thought it was good, not great. I would have maybe had him do a little bit more. What I did really like about it was, I thought they should have done more vignettes leading up to it. They did one video on Collision like 3 weeks ago, and they should have had it on Dynamite for a couple weeks so that people were anticipating it. But when he came out, he didn't get really any reaction, and then he kind of won over the crowd with his wrestling. And I thought Excalibur did a phenomenal job of explaining who he was and talked about some of the moves he does. And it was moves that we didn't get to see. So now you want to see him again because he kept talking about that, his finisher. I'm blanking on the name of it, but he didn't actually hit the finisher. He went for it at one point and missed it. And so now we want to see that. We also didn't get to see the speedball kicks, which I think are going to get over as a big deal. And so, yeah, like it kind of left you wanting more a little bit. I would give it like a 6 out of 10, which maybe sounds worse than it is, but it could have been worse. They've done worse debuts and they've done better debuts. And this was slightly better than average, I thought.
I thought it was a nice match. And the thing that, I was most interested in is, because sometimes when they debut these guys, the crowd absolutely is expecting it. They know who it is. They almost cheer their name before they even come out. That did not happen here.
No,
they didn't. I don't, some people obviously knew who he was, but this wasn't one of those things where the entire audience was like, oh, we know exactly who that guy is. So his actual, when that music played and everything, it was a nice, polite response. But I did think that they got into the match as they saw him. So he actually impressed the audience, I thought. And I thought that's good, And
Mortos was the perfect opponent.
Now I think the question is can you build up some of these debuts a little bit better so that the people I think we saw one video of him and then he became the surprise guy. So I don't know. I guess there's a couple different ways you can do the absolute surprise, and sometimes that works. I don't think he was an absolute surprise guy. I don't think Josh Alexander is an absolute surprise guy either. Or
but I think you learn from this, and if they are bringing in Josh Alexander, which seems to be the indication, they should actually start airing videos now, and build anticipation for his debut, so that when he does show up, people are going to be, oh yeah, this is the guy, cool, Yeah.
What did you think about Ospreay's promo?
I thought it was too long. The stuff about his wife and like that, they should just dropped all that. I thought he closed it.
I think the crowd connected with that part of it, because I didn't like it either, because I was looking at it from the perspective of you just had this crazy blood grudge match, and the thing that you took away from the match was just that your wife called you after to yell at you.
You could have maybe thrown that line in, but I thought just like he set it up, the setup for it was like way too long, and he always makes jokes about his sexual ability or lack thereof. But I thought he closed the promo really, really strong. And the idea of declaring that he's gonna win the Owen and he's gonna go for the title at All In, because it was funny as he was talking and he was saying, "Oh, I'm gonna," he looked at the sign and everything, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you're gonna have to enter the Owen then. And then immediately he says, "I'm gonna enter the Owen." I was like, okay, awesome. And so, like, I love that idea of a long-term goal for this guy. And it's not just going to be random matches with no purpose. And the other thing I really, really liked, and this goes for the whole show, the results on Sunday mattered for Wednesday and going forward. And that isn't always the case with AEW. There is a lot of times when they'll have a show on Sunday or Saturday, and by Wednesday, it's like, that show didn't even happen. And now it's like everything that happened on that show, it means something for the future. And I really, really like that a lot. So that's like a feather in Tony Khan's cap, in my opinion. And it's something that he hasn't always been good at.
I will say Ospreay's pretty self-deprecating. He always talks about how he's not very smart, and if it wasn't for wrestling, he would be working at some other job that is, he wouldn't be making money or whatever, however he says it. He connects with the audience in his promos a little differently than some folks. And I didn't exactly know what I thought about it as it was happening, but I think by the end, he was having so much fun being in front of that audience. even though a lot of times he does feel uncomfortable, um, I think that is a very interesting way to connect as a baby face, because the whole thing, like, you can do the Rock, everyone looks at the Rock or CM Punk as this one way to, and because those guys are exceptional. But Osprey, he's talked about this in the past, whether he's autistic or not, or on the spectrum or whatever. You can almost tell that he is a little uncomfortable until he kind of gets into it, and he has to get really excited. There's a dynamic there for him. I don't know if it is classic babyface promo. There are moments where he will be serious. He can't always be kind of goofy like he was. He'll dial it up, but I saw a connection there that was pretty interesting to me. And I felt like, okay, he's got something going here as this sort of everyday man. He's whether he's the top babyface or whatever. Sometimes he will be very into himself. He calls himself the Billy Goat. And other times he's just sort of self-deprecating and friendly, like he was here. So he's like trying to figure out the right lane, it seems like to me. And I liked what he did, even if I didn't necessarily think the whole thing about the wife was he probably saw it as like this funny thing. And I was like, yeah, it probably was, if you're talking to the boys in the back and then you end up almost breaking your hip or whatever happened. But yeah, I think I could tell he's figuring some things out with this audience.
Yeah, he's had some really, really awesome promos, and he's had some that were not so great. And this was, near the top end of them for sure. Overall, I thought all the promos on Dynamite were, every one of them probably could have been like half as long, and they might have been better. But it was clear they were trying to, they had to kill a lot of time because they didn't have a lot of people available to wrestle, unfortunately.
All right, let's talk a little bit of NXT. And my one question, and if there's anything off of the show that they did, the Roadblock show that they did the other day, you can bring it up. But as I was watching, I thought, okay, we have Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, two women who were not in this promotion like 5 months ago or whatever, and now they're the main event in a match that feels really important. We got here really quickly. Like it was almost like, you would have thought, oh, have they been there for a long? No, they haven't been here for very long, and they're already in this spot. Who do you think is the better main roster prospect between the two?
Julia.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, I just think her look, her star power, is better suited for the main roster. But I think her ceiling is higher, but I think Stephanie's floor is higher. So I think Stephanie is safer and is almost a sure thing. Whereas Julia, it might not work, but if it does work, it could work on a huge level. Is kind of what I'm saying there.
You're probably right, but when it comes to who do I have faith in that WWE will figure them out better, I might choose Stephanie. She's just different than what they have on the main roster right now. She stands out in a different way because she's not Mexican. She is, more of a Latin descent, but it's not like she's Mexican. So her origin and her ethnicity is unique to WWE. So I like that a lot. And she's got just the mystique, the mysteriousness of her look, I think is something that will draw people in. Julia has a little bit of that too. And I love Julia's look. Like Julia, her look is like, even amongst a lot of Japanese women, she has a unique look. So I like that as well. But as I watch them wrestle, I can see Julia sometimes hesitating a little bit because she's trying to kind of do a little bit of a different style that's maybe not something that's instinctual.
Well, she's
for
also
her.
been banged up too.
Yeah,
Like,
and she's
so
hurt.
yeah,
Whatever the injury is, we're
yeah.
not sure. But Stephanie just looks like she's adapted to that style
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more quickly, and I think that style actually works really well for her. Whereas I'm not sure that is better for Julia's wrestling for this WWE style. So we'll have to wait and see. But no, I think it's a great comparison, and they're probably always going to be compared in their careers just because of the time frame that in which
The time, yeah,
they
the
came
timing when they
to
came
the
in.
company.
I think, and I think another one that's down there that, is, I think Jordan in a lot of ways is like Stephanie in that she's unique. And so her on the main roster could connect in a different way than anybody else because there's nobody else like her. And so yeah, that's the advantage they have. And even with like, I look at Julia and you mentioned Japanese, and I mean, she's, they don't even really highlight this, but she's Italian.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I mean, she was born in Italy, I believe, and I think she was raised in Japan, so she speaks fluent Japanese. But like her look, she almost looks like when I first saw her, I thought like Christina Aguilera, like that kind of like superstar pop star look, but with like Asian or Italian or some mix of that.
Okay, so she's half,
Yeah.
which makes sense. She's
Yeah.
half Italian, half Japanese. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense now, because I didn't think she looked full
Japanese.
Japanese,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to assume either.
So that's probably another reason why you're a big fan of hers. 'Cause you're half
Yeah,
Japanese.
because we're both. They
Yeah.
would consider us. Actually, I don't know if they call it this in Japan. They, I think they do, but they would consider us Hapa, which essentially just means half.
Like biracial, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, we'd probably get slack for being half as well at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. But yeah, look, so yeah, I agree. Like, I think we're on the same page there. It's just, yeah, like I just thinking that Julia has the higher upside, but is less of a guarantee than Stephanie is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, Bryce Harper versus Steven Strasburg as the top two prospects in baseball. You can't really go wrong. Although after they won the World Series, Steven Strasburg did go wrong.
I go back to Joe Mauer and Mark Pryor.
There you go.
Yeah,
one of them is a Hall of Famer, though.
Yeah,
one of them could have been. Yeah,
one of them could have been.
Pitching is so hard on these guys.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from NXT that you wanted to bring up?
I just thought it was like a super good show overall. Like, it was. I made the comment that it's more like a takeover than a lot of the PLEs are.
Mm-hmm.
Just 5 like really, really good matches. Like, the weakest match on the show would be the best match on the show most weeks. It would be like Jordan and Roxanne, and I mean, that was a great match. It was just, it was the least great of the 5.
The Hardys.
The Hardys were awesome.
Getting over like crazy.
Yeah. Moose and Oba. And then like, and that was my favorite match. And then, when I was talking to Keela about it on Wednesday, she loved the street fight. And so, yeah, that's the one thing I want to bring up about Roadblock is Ethan Page.
Yep.
He has knocked it out of the park since he came into NXT. And I think he's shown that he could be a really valuable guy. And if you look back on his history in AEW, like every time he was given an opportunity, he nailed it. It was just they would do something with him and then they'd forget about him. And then they'd bring him back and he'd do something with them and then they'd forget about him. But every time they brought him out there, like he had a great feud with Darby. He had the stuff with the Dan Lambert with the Men of the Year. He had a mini feud with Kenny Omega where he got a world title match. Another one with MJF where he got a world title match. Then he goes to Ring of Honor and does like a 4-star match with Tony Nese. Like he just nailed it every time. And then he comes to WWE and he's doing the same thing in NXT. And man, when he gets to the main roster, like he's a big guy. He's got personality. He's a good worker. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. So
I think he's been fantastic. And the character that he plays, it screams mid-card on the main roster, and they have tons of people who can do this. It's kind of it's a version of the Miz. He does it. He's you believe
Chad
in him
Gable,
a little bit
maybe
more, and so that's a little bit what I worry about. Like how can he stand out a little bit in doing that character? I know he does the Bischoff thing with the dimple, and that I don't know. I would hope that if they do bring him up, that they have a plan for him so that he just doesn't get lost.
Yeah, I agree.
And Javon was
his job in the last 3 months was to level Javon up, and he did that.
And he took that the chair thing with the chair, which was
so awesome.
It looked like it was very safe, but it also looked really good at the same time.
And it was a perfect finish for their feud.
Yeah.
Like, the way it started and the way it finished. It was like just a 10 out of 10, no notes.
All right, quickly. New Japan Cup. We are down to the semifinals now. I didn't know that you didn't catch up.
Fine. You can spoil it.
So I just want to know your thoughts on, now that we're down to the final 8, who you think is going to win. We have Zack Sabre Jr. against Taichi.
Okay.
We have David Finlay against Yuya Uemura.
Okay.
We have Shingo Takagi against Drillo Maloney, and Jeff Cobb versus Shota Umino. Those are the 4 matches left for the New Japan Cup.
All right. So my final 4, when I did the bracket on Chris Sams's website, was Shingo, Zack, Umino, and Uemura. So they're all still alive.
They're all still alive. Good for you.
And I think I had Umino beating Uemura in the finals.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm sticking with that. I think that what they're doing with Umino right now, they're trying to reinvent him. He shaved his head. The idea is he's going back to his roots, but it just feels like this is what they do sometimes. And they did it with Sonata, and now they're maybe doing it with him. But I think, like, out of the guys left, the Uemura is another one that could win, and Zack could obviously win. But then you're thinking, okay, who's the champ is Goto. And who's going to be a good match for Goto? Like, Goto's going to have a good match with anybody, but I kind of like the idea of Goto and Umino, honestly. So I'm going to stick with Umino. We'll see. I'm pleasantly surprised that my guys are alive. I was like, I'd gotten like 46 out of 50 points, and I was like 38th or something. Like that thing is hard.
Yeah, yeah. When we did our bracket live with Jeremy, we have 3. Our 3 out of the final possible 4 is left. We had Uemura and Shingo in the finals, and we had Uemura winning. But we did this all while John LaRocca was saying, "Nope, David Finlay's going to win."
I know. I was laughing at that one. Yeah. And he's out already, right?
No, he is facing.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, because he beat Evil.
Yeah, he is facing Uemura.
Right.
Quarters.
So that one's a key. Like, if I think the winner of that is in the finals. Like, they've got another match, obviously, but so what you have the results from today?
Those are the results.
Oh, okay. I don't.
So the matches from yesterday were
it was this morning, right?
So for this morning it was Jeff Cobb beat Naito, Drilla beat that no good TJP. And maybe were those the only 2? Those might have
be, because I think those were the 2 results I had. I may have had Naito beating Jeff Cobb, but no, I think I had Cobb beating Naito.
Shingo, whoever Shingo faced, that might have been this morning as well.
Okay, but yeah, TJP. You know what? He's awesome. I know you hate him, but he's awesome on commentary.
Bolton Oleg, he beat Bolton Oleg.
Shingo?
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah. And then I think, so Shingo faces Drilla next.
Yes.
And I think that's where I have Shingo beating Drilla, because Drilla beat him the first time. So,
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now, as we're at the end of this show, we can do the SmackDown spoiler. So if you are watching on video and haven't seen SmackDown and don't want to hear, or if you're listening on audio and you still are waiting to watch SmackDown, you can end the show now, and we'll be back next Thursday. I believe John LaRocca is going to be back. We'll see if he still has Scotch tape on his mouth and is unable to talk about anything. We'll have to figure that one out, but appreciate you. And now let's talk about the SmackDown spoilers. What was the big news coming out of the show?
So I didn't take any notes, so this is all from memory. The big news, I guess, was probably DIY lost the tag team titles to the Street Profits in the main event. So that was it's a good match, really good match. The best match on the show was Gunther and
Was it
Axiom.
DIY or
Yeah.
who's okay.
Yeah, DIY is the champs. Yeah.
The
They missed the meet in the middle. Gargano super kicked Ciampa, and
Okay.
then Montez hit the splash. And you know what's funny? You know, I log all the matches I watch, right?
Mhm.
This was the first time I'd seen Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins in a match all year.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, and they won. So good for them. They're the tag team champs, and they face Pretty Deadly next week, I believe. As because they had won a number one contenders match last week. So Gunther came out, did a promo, called out Axiom because they were in Barcelona and he's from Spain. And they had a great match, like a 12-minute, 4-star plus match that, not quite a pay-per-view match, but like an awesome TV match. And of course, Gunther won. I'm not sure if it was a title match or not. We had Charlotte against B-Fab, which was way better than I would have expected, but it was the crowd. Like the crowd was amazing.
Charlotte's first singles match since December of 2023, according to this write-up from of the spoilers.
First time in my on my sheet as well, because I didn't write down all the people in the Royal Rumble. So she and then they had a brawl with Tiffany afterwards, which was a very, very low rent version of the one that CM Punk and Rollins had on Raw. But it was fine. It was just not nearly as good as that one. But it was funny because they were both wearing the exact same outfits. So I put in our Discord that it was like the Spider-Man meme, with so yeah, there was that. Orton did a match with Carmelo Hayes that was really good. Orton gave him more than you would expect, and then he beat him, and then KO made an appearance, attacked Randy after the match, and then Randy made a comeback and KO took off through the crowd, limping pretty heavy. I assume he's selling. I hope he's selling. So that was that. Drew McIntyre screwed up. They did an impromptu Damian Priest Shinsuke Nakamura match, and that was really good too while it lasted. But then Drew McIntyre showed up, screwed it up. He was over as hell. The fans were singing for him and everything, and so it's kind of frustrating for Damian because he was doing promos in Spanish, and I think he thought he was going to be the big baby face, and he was until Drew showed up. And then when Drew showed up, it was like Drew McIntyre. It was like the way they are in Europe. So someone had a sign in the front row though that said Drew McIntyre. I like that. So that I think that was like the main stuff. I don't know if I missed anything. I didn't take any notes. So and then they had the two vignettes, one for Phoenix, and I guess the other one was for Malachi Black or Aleister Black, but it just had a 4. So I don't know what that means, but the other one was it was like they had like it was Phoenix in a ring, and it was like there was like this orange lighting, so you couldn't really see his face, but you could see his outline, and it was clearly Phoenix. And so he's coming, and I guess he's coming on SmackDown, which is kind of weird, but you'd think he would be going in with Penta, but unless they're just going to air it on Raw too.
Right. Yeah, they might do that. By the way, you say vignette, and you actually use the sound of the G when you say it. Is that a Canadian thing? Or
I don't know.
Is it vignettes? Or
sometimes I say vignette. Sometimes I say vignette. Sometimes
I thought it was
I think it's interchangeable for me. Like it may be a Canadian thing. I don't know. But vignette. I say vignette a lot, but I don't know. Vignette. Yeah, it's spelled vignette.
It is spelled vignette.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but very good show. I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah. Now I gotta watch it, and now I gotta watch a Collision.
You can skip the Charlotte B-Fab match.
All right. So I want to thank you for jumping on and doing this. Always appreciate it when you're available, and also being available on Friday versus Thursday when we usually do it, because I had something going on. What is coming up? You mentioned you did the wrap. You were on the wrap. You did your Dynamite show on Wednesday after AEW Dynamite. People can go to the Fight Game Media YouTube channel or the Fight Game Media audio network for that. What else is going on? I guess you and I won't be back until the next UFC together on Wrestling Observer Radio, 314, whenever that is.
I think it's like April sometime. April.
It's like the same weekend as Dynasty, I think. It's going to be another nutty weekend.
Another one of those. I don't really have anything like the Dynamite show, the next one, and then I'm going to Vegas for a weekend to hang out with my sister. So that's gonna be fun. And
You're missing Mania.
Yeah, I know. And it's because of that weekend. Like if it wasn't that I was going to hang out with my sister, I would have, and she would have come to Mania. But if I'm going to Mania, I have to bring my daughter, and she wants to hang out with me. So
right.
Not that she doesn't like my daughter, but we want to like party and stuff. So, yeah. So I'm going March 20th to 24th. So yeah. So I'll do that Dynamite show, and then I'm going to be probably offline for a while. Yeah. Yeah, and then I'll be watching all the shows and doing my column on Monday. I watched a lot this week, dude. I don't know. I'm trying to get to that 100 matches in a week. I don't know if I'm gonna ever get there, but I'm usually around 70. So
crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
I just went over 700 for the year.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And we're in March.
All right. Thanks again. We'll be back next week. We'll probably not going live next week. We actually did a live show Sunday night after Revolution. So if you want to hear myself and John LaRocca and Jeremy's immediate response to that show, it's on this F4W Online YouTube channel, and it was up Sunday night, so you can kind of go backwards and find it. But all right, thank you to Paul. I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.